All right. And we are live. And, I just realized, welcome back, Krystyna.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I think this is almost like a yearly anniversary.
Oh, is
Uh,
it?
well, okay,
We
a
should
little ahead.
celebrate.
We should. We should. We're having a show to do that. But it's actually maybe a little bit shy of that because you were my third episode ever on this
Wow.
show. And I think I did it like last year in February-ish too, and then welcome back in January. So close
I'll get it
enough.
booked in the diary for next time.
Yes, we should just make this an annual event. Hopefully, I keep growing as we go doing this,
Yay.
and both of us will, hopefully become large and huge.
Mm.
Well, you already have huge audiences, so that
Wow.
definitely works out. I think you have a lot of things coming up that you can't talk about, but they're probably
I
people will
can
be
say
hearing
little
more about
bits.
you. So
I
that's
have
awesome.
signed an NDA, so.
I totally get it. So I do not want to tread, past anything there.
Hmm.
We I I talk to you from time to time online, of course, too, and talk to others like Spidey Hypnosis, who I had on, or Spidey, who does
Hmm.
hypnosis, he does magic, does body language, and had him on last week. One of my big worries is about manipulation.
Hmm.
And I don't know why. It's like a pet peeve. I'm always really paranoid about influence, persuasion, and how it could be used improperly, both intentionally or even unintentionally.
Hmm.
So I kind of wanted to do a show about that, to talk about how things could go wrong. And I know you did a video short because Scott Adams said that no, nobody can be hypnotized against their will, and I brought you on and Chase on to say,
Hmm.
not so fast.
Yeah. Mm.
I wouldn't die on that hill, Scott.
No,
But
absolutely not.
the worry is that through lack of experience, lack of knowledge, poor training, poor technique, poor, you'll fill in the blanks because I'm running quickly to the end of my list, that someone could actually do damage.
Yeah.
And things have come up lately, well, especially with the Ghislaine Maxwell trial,
Yeah.
that kind of
Hmm.
reminded me of some of this. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you were around during the 80s, or, obviously you're much younger than I am, but and remember the whole satanic panic and false memories problem.
I don't, but I'm aware. Well, I mean, I was around then, but I was about 6 or 7,
Right,
probably.
I
So,
know you were trying. I got it.
so, but yeah, I'm aware of false memory and things like that, and it is something that concerns me hugely as well, which is obviously why I'm here.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, as a hypnotist, that is your job, to manipulate people to get them to do what you want them to do. Hopefully they want to do that too. But as a therapist, it's more worrying when people are, as a therapist, we're there to manipulate the situation in a
Mhm.
good way. But it can very easily go the other way.
Okay, now you have extensive training, so I would just love if you could share, where you've gone to school and everything else, because people can go and take a certification and then be a certified hypnotist by whatever. And
Hmm.
I would argue that there's different levels of experience and
Yeah,
knowledge. And I'm not trying
massively.
to, besmirch anybody.
Hmm.
Somebody may have taken a shorter course, but been at it for 20 years and be incredibly talented and experienced. But can you talk about what your professional background is?
So I started out as psychology, counseling,
Mm.
psychotherapy, hypnotherapy. I've done executive coaching, I've done neuro coaching, um, some NLP. So I've done lots and lots of the certifications. I'd call them continuous professional development. But
Mhm.
then obviously you've got your degree foundation that you build upon. So there's only one trainer provider in the UK that offers what they call proper further education where hypnotherapy is concerned. And that's the National College of Hypnosis and Psychotherapy. You actually get credits towards a degree or a master's on their course. So anywhere else in the UK that offers training does not offer that.
Okay, so your baseline then is a psychology or psychiatry degree.
Not psychology, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to clarify because there are psychiatrists who do it as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Psychiatry is generally more taking medication.
Sure.
So,
And
yeah.
they can prescribe. Here in America, at least, I know that's the main difference is they can prescribe medicine and
exactly.
whatnot.
You don't want me prescribing medicine for you.
Are you sure?
Well, maybe you do. It'd be fun.
Well, let's try some of this today.
Yeah.
Who knows? Okay, so I just want to clarify this. See, the hypnotherapy is actually just one component of your overall training.
Yes, it's a relatively small component, but the one that I'm best known for. But yeah, it's a small component.
Well, we talked about that.
I'd say a 9th or a 10th of my qualifications.
Well, it makes sense, but you actually got further training to get known for that because it's a different kind of hypnosis. I mean, you did hypnosis, but you didn't do stage hypnosis, and I know that you sought out like stage training because it's different, correct?
Yeah, I did hypnotherapy and then advanced hypnotherapy. I think I did 3 separate hypnotherapy qualifications. And it was the university that provided that, so it's formal qualifications. But then when it came to doing stage, I had a mentor that had a very long career, Hugh Lennon, who had a very long career as a stage hypnotist, and I took guidance from him. And I used to do his music as well when I was younger, so I'd been watching the show for years and was sort of well aware of how it worked. But he sort of polished the turd, if you like.
Well, I mean, okay,
I rolled it in glitter.
Well, you kind of have to, I'm guessing, because if you're doing the therapy, isn't it more focused on the patient versus a presentation? Like stage, you have to draw attention to yourself on the stage because you're performing. People want to pay their money, and it's worth it.
I mean, it's too obviously there's the fundamentals are quite similar, but then it's quite different. It's very much more authoritative, the style, and there's certain rules that you have to follow. But then there's the performance aspect of it, never to stand with your back to the audience and how to project yourself, how to stand. Because at first I was just like leaning on chairs and stood with my back to people, and it's like, oh, you can't do that, and what to say to sort of prepare people, because a lot of the hypnosis is covert hypnosis as well. The opening sort of segment of your show is priming them ready to comply with what you want.
Okay, now actually on that note, because I had some questions that came in ahead of time, Gavin Stone, who has been on the show and he's a frequent viewer, asked, are there any tells as far as this person would be a good subject, this one won't, without any, you're doing any action on them, just something you can see
just
in them
by looking
or something that you see them doing or an attitude?
Not by looking at them. I know some people are very talented and can sort of look at people. I'm obviously not that talented. I can't tell by looking at people. Having a quick conversation with somebody, then I can quite quickly start to tell whether they're going to be a good subject. Asking people what they do for a living is a good indicator.
Really? What livings would spark up?
So if I was to hypnotize soldiers, that'd be brilliant, because they're just so used to taking orders. They do it without questioning. Anybody that's creative, you know, any sort of artist kind of creative kind of person is also great. And that doesn't mean to say that all of them will be brilliant subjects. And I suppose my worst would be a room full of accountants.
How about lawyers? Where do they fall?
No, lawyers are quite good. They seem to be quite creative. But yeah, I think
I can see that. I can see engineers and accountants, and
yeah,
that makes certain sense.
Yeah, it's everybody has a frame of thinking.
Okay.
So and that's influenced by their job. So that's a very good indicator.
Okay, so the soldiers are predestined or pre-trained to be compliant, and artists are pre-imaginative. Are those the two big parts you're looking for?
Two good components, yeah. It's the main components. If you comply and you've got creative imagination, you're gone.
Okay,
you're
so
going down.
you might be able to look at people and pick some of that up. I mean, with the male soldiers, you get the haircut.
Yeah,
maybe somebody who had a little bit of fashion
or something like that. But there's nothing like by the expression of their face or anything that I personally. I'm not saying that anyone else couldn't. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. Question from the chat from Ziggins is getting back to the core point because I've already wandered. What would be a circumstance you would not recommend someone having hypnotherapy, or it would be possibly dangerous?
If someone had serious mental health issues already, then it's something that I personally would veer away from because I don't have experience really of working with very severe mental health problems. So generally that is an area that I'll just stay clear of. But other than that, there's not really anybody that you can't work with. There's people that are more difficult to work with, but yeah.
I was just thinking about that, like schizophrenia or something. Could that cause issues?
Yeah,
with
it requires a higher level of skill. And I'm not saying I can't do that. I just haven't done that for a very long time. And it's not something that I'd want to be. I think if you work in a certain area, you should stick to that area. That's my personal opinion. You sort of learn a lot about that area. So there's areas that I have worked, gaining experience, but I haven't found that it's particularly my area. So I'll just stay away from it and stick to what I know and what I'm good at.
Well, I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, one thing good about the entertainment side is there's slightly less responsibility to somebody's health because you're just being a little lighter. I mean, I'm not saying that you're not careful with people, but you're not treating a condition per se.
Yeah, but there is, I mean, it depends show to show, but a lot of TV shows, the people that I work with have gone through some. I did a TV pilot that I'm not allowed to talk much about, but they went through some. They had to see psychologists and psychiatrists to figure out whether they were good to go. So some TV shows take people through very stringent tests. Others don't care. Just give me anybody and it's up. But it's my reputation. It's my neck on the line. So I always double check.
I actually talked to Spuddy about that off the record because obviously in a live show, not TV, but if you're just doing a live show, you don't have that kind of pre-screening. So how do you handle, like, I imagine you come across some people you might say, oh, there's something here. Do you give them like a card and say, hey, call somebody, or just get them kicked off right away? Like, don't work
any TV show I've done a few live TV shows, I will always make sure that I meet the people first. And as well for TV, there's no just getting somebody out of the audience because, for instance, if they've got a logo on their top or they've got checks on, it interferes with cameras or they're not allowed to show it. If somebody's got a skirt that's too short, something like that. So you can't just bring people out. the producers will look at them and go, he's too scruffy, he's got a logo, his top's not right, she doesn't look right, and they will choose people. But I also have to be quite firm with what I want and I need, and I'll pick and sort of vet people as well.
Okay, so are you 100% TV or therapy, and you don't do? I meant live show, as in not television, like just go out and do a
Oh,
show.
oh, right. Okay, that was TV. Yeah, so live show, I always in my pre-talk ask if people have any, not to come up on stage, not to volunteer, if they have any sort of certain medical conditions, any mental health issues. So that is at the beginning of the, the pre-talk. But then when you get them up on stage, you might see that someone, oops, this person, probably does fit in that category. And it's a matter of just putting them either back in the audience or keeping them. Sometimes I've kept people on stage with me,
Mhm.
but I've not hypnotized them. Might have started the induction and thought they're not, they're not suitable. And I'll keep them to one side of the stage where I can keep an eye on them until the end of the show and then have a chat with them.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I was wondering, is how you
Mhm.
parse them out, or what you do.
Yeah. I mean, once you've started, then you've got to remove suggestions. So very often I will ask people to stay in the audience if they're with someone, to have somebody sit with them, and not go anywhere. But I always have somebody that also looks out for that. You need somebody that's an assistant that can look out for that kind of thing as well.
Okay, and another quick question: is your pre-talk part of a procedure to test people and be watching them as you go to see if?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, the pre-talk is to implant suggestion,
Mhm.
and as well as it stops people from coming up that I don't want to come up, but it also starts to set the scene. I tell people who I don't want up there, the kind of people I don't want up there. I tell them the kind of people that I do want up there. But I also plant some seeds within that as well.
I see. You're devious. I know this.
Obviously.
All right. So he's asking here, speaking of being devious, can we be hypnotized by watching a movie at home or in the theater, or subliminal messages?
Yeah, otherwise there would be no marketing. Marketeers rely on you going into a trance. I always remember watching a zombie movie at the cinema, and it was in the middle of the day, and it was so intense and I was terrified. And when we came out at the end, I opened the doors, and walking through the car park, I actually started to panic about people being zombies. And this isn't so long ago, but I was that
Mhm.
influenced by it. It had hypnotized me in a way. So
Okay.
yes,
And
is
is
the
that similar? I mean, I know the most commonly used one is that how many times do you drive somewhere and don't remember a single part of the drive because it's such a routine it becomes a theta state or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. You slip into different states. Some people disagree with this. There's different theories, that hypnosis is not a state. Some people believe it is a state. But yeah, you go into, as soon as I get you to imagine anything, then you have sort of entered a different part of your brain. So as soon as I ask you to use your imagination and imagine something, then your brain will start to act differently. And that's what's happening in movies. You're imagining something.
Okay, and we've talked about that before, which I thought was very interesting, how you are deliberately vague when you're using it, in the sense of you're walking in a forest or something rather than you're walking amongst some pines.
Yeah, you can be quite vague. I mean, when you're working with an individual, you can use their language and make it very specific because you know how they speak, what whether you know, they like the forest or something like that, whether they are auditory or kinesthetic. But when you are hypnotizing an audience, you can't you have to be vague sometimes, or maybe this, or maybe that. And I don't know whether you are doing this or whether you are, so it
Mm.
fits everything really.
Okay, and you know what, on that note, getting back into the danger, We've done a 3-part series on another show I do, America's Untold Stories, on Sirhan and the assassination of RFK. And my co-host Mark Robert testified that Sirhan's blood alcohol level was 2.4. What are the effects of hypnosis when combined with or dealing with alcohol at a time? Because I imagine a lot of where you go, people might be drinking, things like that. Are there considerations?
So I always find that if they've had a couple of drinks, it's fine. It helps them to relax. If they've had too many, they can't concentrate on what I'm saying. They're not listening. They're not doing, they just start acting the fool. So a couple of drinks I find is okay. Any more than that is not okay. It starts to have a negative effect.
Okay, now curiosity, because now I'm getting very specific. The theory is that he was under hypnosis and he was hypnotized many times. This is, recorded history. I mean, it's all factually out there. What would the effects be if he was, let's say, in a trance state or had a trigger word or something else, and he got really drunk right before the incident? I'm just curious your thoughts or speculation.
So he was hypnotized, then he got drunk.
Correct.
And then something happened.
Yes.
As I say, everybody's different, but I mean, when you're drunk, you get something in your head that I do, I don't know, but very often drunk people get something in their head that they must do.
So I don't know whether pre-existing in his head, it
pre-existing, then absolutely, yes. It's they. I mean, I can't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that would be in there. I use hypnosis. A lot of people that have come to me that drink too much. And so we set a limit, right? We agree a limit, right? How much are you going to drink? So, right, I only want to drink 4 drinks. So we set a limit that, right, 4 drinks and that's it. So they've had a few drinks and then that 4 drinks are able to stop and leave it there. So they're drinking, and they've got that suggestion in their head and it works.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's possible. And we're going to go back around, but I'm like, okay, I'm grabbing this for other stuff too. But in the case of Sirhan, it's possible, obviously we don't have all the facts, that a command or action could have been put in to effect or trigger. And if he drank a lot and let's say somebody activated the trigger when he was really drunk, that the alcohol wouldn't lessen the effect. It might actually intensify the effect.
Yeah. Because I mean, once somebody's hypnotized, I mean, the suggestion's already in there. And if there was any sort of loss of confidence in what they're doing, the alcohol is going to interfere with that anyway. So in my opinion, I would guess that it would intensify it unless they were ridiculously drunk.
Okay, so it would bring the inhibitions down, essentially.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. So just, I don't know if this is related to it, but is the part of your brain that experiences PTSD the same part that is used for hypnosis?
It's the same. Well, there's not particularly a part of your brain that's used for hypnosis. Yes and no. It's a difficult one to answer that. It's it's a bit of a tricky one to answer. I wouldn't like to. I'm not a neurologist. So.
Well, no, I mean that's fair, and I mean that's why I love having you. You're not going to, make a false claim.
I wouldn't like to answer that. I'd say yes and no.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I think it's true. Is gaslighting a form of hypnotism?
It's influence. Hypnosis is the ultimate. Hypnosis to me, everyone has a different theory on what hypnosis is. To me, hypnosis in that we see on a stage is a set of tricks and hacks that get you to a certain point, that make you believe I have the power. And there's sort of you go down this journey and you conform to what I say, and then at some point I then hold the power. And with somebody gaslighting or something like that, or influencing your behavior, it's exactly the same, pretty much. It's not official, it's not hypnosis, but it's influence using emotion as a tool.
Now, on that same note, because you treat people in therapy, do you ever have any patients, or have you worked with anyone who has been a victim of a poor relationship where they may have been gaslit? I don't know if that's the term, gaslit. I mean, gaslighting. I'll say gaslit. Why not?
Gaslighted.
I mean, yeah, it was suffered this. And is it something hypnosis can help with, or are there other ways you would tackle that as a therapist?
Gaslit. I've recently had a lot of people that have had a certain kind of therapy recently that have had mental health issues afterwards. And I don't think that is, it's definitely not a therapist that's trying to do wrong. But it's poorly trained therapists that are using regression methods, which there's nothing wrong with regression methods used by the right therapist with the proper experience and qualifications. But I have had a lot of people come to me recently, 6 over the last couple of months. Well, sorry, the last month, because it was 2 the other day and a few last month, that have had a particular kind of rapid therapy, and they have been encouraged to find some kind of childhood trauma, which in my opinion and in their opinion didn't exist, but the therapist was hell-bent on finding this childhood trauma that existed, and just kept digging and digging. And one lady was far beyond my help. I had to refer her to psychiatrists and psychologists, that work for the NHS, because it was getting to the point of sectioning, very severe.
What is sectioning?
Sectioning, where you put in, you've forcefully put in a care facility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be like what we call committed?
Yes, committed. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Have different.
Yes. Yes.
You're ever across the pond.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Sectioned. Cut her in half.
That's so nice. Well, you know what? I didn't know, and that's why I'm glad I asked, because what popped in my head was a splitting personality.
Ah, right. Yes. No,
And
wasn't
obviously that was completely wrong. So I'm glad I asked.
Yes.
Because I have an imagination too.
Yeah. Great subject.
For sure. Nothing. Okay, so on that now, that actually kind of goes right to the false memory thing, right? Or something similar, because there's the problem of and is this, and I'll let you run with it, but is this a case of like maybe leading questions from a person?
I don't know. I wasn't privy to all I can go on is what I have been told. So I wasn't there, but I have been told the same story now. And it was literally that the therapist just kept asking questions, saying there must be a childhood trauma. So what about this? And just digging and digging. Well, did this happen to you? Did that? And it was asking questions that it was like, wow, that could have and did for some people open up a can of worms. But yes, there is the danger of implanting false memory. That's the problem. If anything is in any way leading, you're in a very, very vulnerable position. When you're hypnotized, you're very suggestible. So any time of the day, you're suggestible, but under hypnosis, hugely. So any leading question is not a great idea unless you're deliberately, I mean, that's what I'd do if I was deliberately trying to change somebody's behaviors in a positive way, is I would lead them in a direction. But even then, I'm very careful to use the client's behaviors, the client's wishes, the client's language, so that we agree on exactly what I'm going to be saying, what I'm going to be implanting in there.
And this is because, just to make sure I understand it, a leading question could be interpreted, or often is interpreted, as an order.
An order, it could be, yeah, it could be interpreted as an order, but also, I mean, we know about false memory being implanted. So even a suggestion might be like, oh, did that happen to me? Maybe something did happen to me. And we start to embroider the truth there and add bits and bobs to it. And then, as you know, every time you access that memory, we change facts of the memory. So none of the memories we have are apparently real.
Well, is it like the NLP aspect of, don't think about the pink elephant that's sitting behind your shoulder here in the room. And in order to not think of it, you have to actually think of it. So I've
Yeah.
just implanted the thing that you're supposed to not think of.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't use certain language. I'm from the school of, we would never say to somebody under hypnosis, you don't want to do this. Like, you are going to stop smoking. I wouldn't even use the word smoking.
What would you use? That'd be fun. I mean, if we can
I don't do smoking, so but I would never say, under hypnosis, we are removing your anxiety. I just wouldn't mention anxiety.
Okay, can you give me an example of what you might do? And why not smoking? You don't like smokers? You can't be around them long enough?
It's not an area that I've felt particularly comfortable, so it's not an area I've worked. So I'm still pretty much on my basic training there. So I can't guarantee any results over 50%. So I don't do that. So I work in an area where I know I can get people results.
Okay, so whatever form of anxiety, would this be a fear of something, like a fear of a spider or height,
Well,
or just
just say, for
general?
instance, generalized anxiety. If somebody has an anxiety of speaking, public speaking, I would never mention the anxiety during the session.
What would be the kind of question or statement you might make?
My therapy is quite different. I'm pretty much out on my own. I've got my own therapy that I do, and I basically delete people's negative thinking. So my belief is that as soon as we have a thought, we release hormones into our nervous system. And people that are nervous or scared think negative thoughts about the event, and that creates the feeling that makes them feel anxious. So therefore, we identify what the negative thoughts are and we delete them. They never say those words again.
Oh, okay, so you get them. I was gonna say, is it like an exposure therapy? Like they reveal them and then you just tackle them as they reveal
So
to you?
yeah, the first part of a session would be me discussing with a client what the negative thoughts are that they're having and make sure they identify them. Sometimes we even give them a name. So it might be, I'd give a character to that. Say like if you were procrastinating, I'd be like, right,
Never. Not me. I'm Johnny on
I've
the
been
spot. I
watching
never.
you. If you were procrastinating, and I would get you to identify that character. So when Peter, the procrastinator, starts speaking in your head, like, oh, just do that tomorrow, or, oh, you can't do that because people are going to laugh at you, or whatever, I would get you to give that person a name. So it's pushing it further away from you. It's giving it another identity. So it makes it easier for you to identify that character when it starts in your head. So when you hear that negative dialogue, you're like, oh, that's Peter the procrastinator, and we delete it. So
That's
then I would.
interesting, because I'm used to, like, if you name something that's actually making it more personal, like I can never say the word, but when you like give an animal pet, you're like giving them human qualities.
Mhm.
It's anthropomorphizing, I think is how you say it. It's
Okay.
tough word. I
Believe you.
certain words, but anyway, you understand what I'm talking about, where giving an identity makes it closer to you, but this is the reverse.
Yeah,
That's
because we don't want that behavior. So we want
okay.
to move it further away.
Okay.
So we give it a character, so it's easy to identify and we can get rid of it. But I work with people to delete that dialogue that causes procrastination, anxiety, lack of action, that gets people off track. I just delete the whole dialogue.
When you
And
say
then
delete, you just say, "Oh, it's gone," or
it,
what's a delete?
pretty much, I mean, I've had psychologists contact me going, "That is impossible." It's like, well, I've been doing it for about 20 years now, and
Well, I know
it's
it's
kind of worked. So, yeah, pretty much instead of they just think differently. We delete neural pathways and we build new neural pathways. So
hmm.
I discuss with them what the negatives are that they want to delete. And then after that point, they are never allowed to mention it again. It's like if they mention it, I'm like, no, delete. And then we talk about what they want to install, how they're going to be confident, how they're going to be successful, and what we have to then build that frame of thinking.
Now, when
And
you say they mention it again, is that while they're just talking to you awake, or they're
yes,
still under?
while they're still talking to me. So it
Interesting. So
as
they're not
in the
under at the time.
no, I only do 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes at the end hypnosis. The other
Hmm.
hour is me deciphering what the negative is, then talking about what the positive is that they want to achieve, and then the last bit's deleting the negative and installing the positive.
Okay. Now, are you a one and done type of situation, or do you see multiple?
Not really. I have found that one session, in some people, one session and that's it. But very often, our thoughts are habitual. Most people say behaviors are habitual. It's my belief that our thoughts are habitual. They create our feelings and our behaviors. So if you change the thinking, you change the behavior. So
Hmm.
our thoughts are habitual. So I found my standard is we have a session on day one, and then about 7 days later, the negative thoughts always try and creep in for some people. So
Hmm.
then 7 days later, I'm quite strict with that. We do another session, which keeps them on that high. And then I leave them about 3 or 4 weeks, time to collect more data, have more situations, and then do another session later on.
Okay, and actually, that I was talking to Spidey about it earlier, but it makes me think: is it a factor too? Like we're talking about anxiety. Sometimes anxiety is produced by our work, or there's
Hmm.
triggers, and one of those triggers could be Thanksgiving, and you have family, and you don't see the family the rest of the
You do.
year, but you
Hmm.
do at this time. So, are there times like you might boom, 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 take care of a couple things in the summer, and then they have to come back in December or January because, oh, there's this other little problem that didn't
No,
quite get
because
covered in the
I
tools.
teach them the method.
Mm,
So I teach them the method, and by giving it a character, you always know when, miserable Molly's starting to talk or Peter the procrastinator. You always recognize, oh God, they're talking, but they're now talking about Christmas. Like, oh God, I've got to say, oh no, delete that. We're not doing that. We're not running that program anymore. We're running this program.
that's almost
So
a compartmentalization in a weird way.
yeah, I do. I work on 3 specific situations. So, like, if you have anxiety speaking, you have anxiety, I don't know, going out of the house, and you have anxiety driving, I'll be like, right, okay, we'll deal with those 3 situations. I don't do more than 3 on one sort of session, but I teach them how to deal with that situation in each of those deal with what the method is, and then they can apply that method to other situations. So I don't really get situations where people come back to me for that. They then want to upgrade even more and come back to me.
Okay. Oh my God, there's a lot of chat. Um, so, one of the questions, and it's already by, but what are your thoughts on mass formation? Or have you? Heard the
What's
term
mass
before.
formation?
Mass formation is a community or group psychosis, like where a society can get influenced to a great degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think are we not causing that in the minute with COVID? Mask, no mask, jab, no jab.
Right. And there was a question of that where first off you keep everybody or you keep people isolated,
Mhm,
then you keep them uncertain, and then you point out here is the solution person, whatever it is.
mhm.
This is kind of culty too. I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but I do think that the formula is not that different.
I had an incident on I was doing it I might have told you this before, I don't know, I'm telling you again. I
No,
had an
I
incident when I did a TV show,
mhm.
and in America, I did The World's Best. I'll probably get sued for this, I don't know, here we go. I did The World's Best, and the people that got on stage, they were on stage longer than I wanted them to be, and they were hypnotized most of the day. Like, I worked with them backstage,
Really?
and then they decided I wasn't going on, and it was just a mess. And when we were on stage, I thought I'd be judged within a couple of minutes and then off stage. They were laid behind me for like 20 minutes. After the show, they went back into the audience and everything was fine. I made sure they were all okay. They were fine. And off I went to get some dinner. I got a phone call from the producers, and all these people had come from separate backgrounds, and none of them knew each other. They'd come from different areas in LA. I'd worked with them, and then they'd gone and sat in separate places in the audience. Every single one of them started projectile vomiting. Every single one. None of them had eaten the same food. And
Hmm.
it was just like, I was like, that can't happen. They were like, it's happening. And it happened.
Could it be a contagion? Like yawning being contagious. Some people I
If
know, if they smell or see vomit, they follow
my,
along.
well, they weren't together.
Oh, okay.
So somebody threw up there, somebody threw up over there, and they were, do you know what I mean?
This sounds like a
It
very
was
bad TV show.
it wasn't great. So my theory is that whilst they were in a suggestible state, that
Mm,
somebody maybe while I wasn't in the room, somebody talked about, somebody could have told a story. Oh, my uncle got hypnotized and he was violently sick, or something like that, and a suggestion be implanted. And then as soon as they get sort of an inkling that someone else has been ill, it'd be like, oh God, I feel ill. And
okay,
that
so one
is,
of those little loops that we get in
yes,
our head.
yeah, that is the only suggestion. I put it in a group full of hypnotists for everybody to comment on, and everybody just said I was lying. So I was like, okay, fine. It didn't happen. That suits me, because it's not of benefit to me to say that happened. But yeah.
Now, of course, everybody wants to know you're putting people under all the time, blah, 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 or doing hypnosis.
Mhm.
How about you? Have people been putting you under? Is it something you do regularly or not so
It
much?
I had hypnosis, I think we've, touched on this before. I had hypnosis the first time when I was pregnant with my son, who is 26 in March. So a long time ago, for, hypnobirthing. I was one of the first people to ever have hypnobirthing done to me.
Mm,
And Hugh had the dog
mm,
show, the dog that hypnotized
right.
people. It was him that did the hypnosis on me, and he used to do a lot of sessions for me. Even when I started to do hypnosis, I used to have him do sessions for me. Until probably about 15 years ago, I was having an operation. I was terrified. And I recorded, he wasn't available, and I
Mm,
recorded my own session. And from that point
mm.
on, then I've been just recording my own sessions and doing it to myself.
Okay, well, now it's a family tradition. I mean, he's a relative, if I recall, and
He's not a real
or
relative. He's
or a
just a
family friend.
close
Okay,
friend. Yeah. I took his name, Hugh Lennon. I
okay,
took his name, but he's not real, a real
okay.
uncle.
He's real, but he's not
He's
in my
real, but he's not real uncle.
Well, the reason why I brought up is that it's kind of a family tradition. If I recall, you've been hypnotizing your kids forever.
Yeah, I mean, when I was training when my kids were really young, so instead of reading a bedtime story, you have to practice on someone. I used to hypnotize the kids. They used to go on magic carpet rides and all sorts of stuff. And it was just practicing different inductions. And they used to love it. And subsequently, it's made them brilliant subjects. They are just so suggestible and, they will come to me regularly saying, Mum, I need a session for this. It's like, bang. Don't even need to do an induction. It's like, look at me, bang, and the down.
Now,
So,
hold on.
yeah.
They don't. I could only imagine if I had a mother or something, be like, "Don't look at me.
Well,
Get
exactly,
away
that's
from me."
what happens.
I'd be like, "Just stay away
I'll
from
say,
me."
look at me, and then they're like, no, and they run. Yeah,
Yeah,
it depends whether they
exactly.
want what I'm about to do. I remember the first time I did that was with my daughter. She was going on a driving lesson and she was like, oh, I feel really nervous about this driving lesson. So I said, oh, sit here. And I just did a really rapid induction, like literally like, look at your hand. And that was it. I just tried it
Mhm.
and it was literally a second and she went bang down. She banged her head. I was like, oh God. And I gave her the positive suggestion. The session
First,
was
with your head doesn't hurt.
yeah, it was, I'll start with that one with a bang my head. It's a good idea. And then it was like, you'll be really confident on your lesson. It's going to be a breeze, easy and effortless. And 1, 2, 3, wide awake. And off she went. And she was brilliant. And when she came round, she was a bit like, what happened? Did I have a fit? Because she has fits. And I was
Mhm.
like, no. And she was like, oh. And she went off for a lesson feeling amazing. So,
Hmm.
but she didn't like the feeling of the rapid induction. So
Hmm.
she won't let me do that anymore. Like, as I say, if I lift my hand up, she'll be like, no, I don't want to do that. She prefers the longer
Oh,
induction.
easing into it, or
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. And
interesting.
she don't like the feeling of losing control.
Can Actually, I am curious about the rapid induction because that, sorry, is something I would worry about being abused as
Mm.
well. Like
Hmm.
I've seen videos, and let's say Darren Brown.
Yeah.
Darren Brown's always a great one to use. I mean, it's all out there on YouTube, so there's nothing hidden. Um, is that a concern? Now, I imagine when he's doing it, there's a camera crew standing behind his shoulder. So when he's doing it, people, that you're sort of on something's going on, and you got to play along more. But
Yeah. I mean, I think with Darren Brown, you've got to remember that he's a magician, a hypnotist,
mhm.
and there's cameras involved, so there's going to be some, and you see a lot of street hypnotists and you see the success. You don't see the failures, that you don't see that they worked with 10 people to get one suggestible
Oh,
person that went down really quickly. They'll be like, I'll
mhm.
show you right from the beginning. Yeah, because you got a red hot subject, but the other 9 people that you tried it on, it didn't really work or didn't work well. So I'm not saying it's 1 out of 9. It might be 1 out of 3 or
Right,
something.
right.
And a more skilled hypnotist obviously will have a higher chance.
Mhm.
Um, but what was your question? I've forgotten.
Well, no worries. I get that where I make a statement question. You're like, is there a question mark on the end of that, Eric? I guess I'm fishing for the ethical considerations and your thoughts on that, because I could see where if people are doing rapid induction in public
Mhm.
and they're not the I don't want to say victim, because that's loaded. Subject did not volunteer. What are the
Mhm.
ethical considerations or your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think particularly you could do that. I mean, you can do. People have done robberies and stuff with under hypnosis, but obviously you can you can do anything. It's a tool, and in the wrong hands, it's it's. I would hope that most hypnotists don't do that, but obviously there has been times where some hypnotists have done that.
Mm.
So yeah, but it's no more dangerous than going into a therapy room with somebody. You know, they're in a room on their own with people, and you know, at least out on the street there's people around. So is it any worse than that? I don't think so. It depends, you know, if it depends on the person and their intent, really, doesn't it?
I agree, and that's kind of where I'm wanting to go, because this is like getting into the teaching ethics and
Mhm.
things of that sort. And this isn't to pick on Dickie here, but I'm going to say I don't think you're correct, Dickie, that they have to be willing.
Well done. No, they don't have to be willing. And the thing is, if I wanted to hypnotize you and you were not willing, I wouldn't tell you that I was going to hypnotize you. If you
Really?
said to me, yeah,
It's
if
like,
you
no,
said to
Eric,
me,
you will be hypnotized. Just wait.
exactly, it's people have said before, oh, I'll give you, you know, I think there's a guy in one of the hypnosis groups that regularly offers people money and says, you know, if you can hypnotize me, I'll give you, I think it was like $2,000. It wasn't really worth it. I think I charge more than that anyway. So I think I know. So
Raise your rates. Give me,
well,
you know, amazing Randy money, and I'll find a way. $1 million,
yeah,
I will fly,
exactly.
set up, rig it out, get a couple
Yeah.
stooges
I
around,
don't know where he lives to know whether it's worth it. If he's round the corner, I'll go do it. But it's, if I wanted to hypnotize you, I wouldn't be telling you. If I wanted to hypnotize you against your will, I wouldn't be telling you I was hypnotizing you. That is rule number one. Because if I tell you, it's like if I tell you, right, my aim is to get you to burn your finger, you're going to be looking out for anything that's going to burn your finger. But I could probably get you to burn your finger if I didn't tell you that that's what I was going to do. And it's kind of the same thing. It's, you know, I would have to kind of go in the back door, use some suggestions and get you compliant first before I went there.
Now, on that note, do you do it over a period of time? And I ask because even when I see with some of the rapid induction, I've picked up like these little tricks, like you're getting a motion, or you know, a little NLP type of things, where what are over there? Yeah, can you show me over there? Can you?
Mm.
And these, now I don't know if that's just really amateurish, or somebody not subtle enough,
It's,
or are there
I think the
tells?
easiest way to do it is to cause confusion. So, for instance, I was speaking to my brother-in-law, who's very intelligent. He's professor of maths, and I was telling him about hypnosis, and we were discussing it. And I went to say something, and then I kind of changed my mind, and I must have done something that was a little bit weird, you know, like it. And he all of a sudden sort of looked a bit shocked and was like, "Are you doing it now? Are you doing something?" At that moment, because he was a bit flustered, I could have taken him out easily. But that would have been opportunistic for me, because but I could create that if that's my intention. But I saw an opportunity and I thought, oh, he believes something is happening now, so I could make something happen really quickly.
Oh, that's right, because he's putting himself under too.
Yeah,
By the belief.
he was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, just because I'd gone you know, he was like, oh. So yeah, he already thought something was happening. So I could have easily put him under, and I had no permission to do that, but I could have done that.
Wow, that's crazy. I don't know what this is. Maybe you do. How you work with IFS, hypnotic estate? Do you know what that is?
No. IFS hypnotic. Not sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
Weird. Anyway, okay, so interesting. But then also, well, that's part of the staging too. Like your brother knows what you do and what you can do, so that's half of it. That's the persuasion element, inadvertently. Like obviously, like we've talked about this, and I know this is a repeat, but I think it's relevant that you've gone up with Princess, and because Princess was your prop that you use, so dog hypnotizing people, that some people would see her and they would put themselves out just by looking at Princess, because Princess would look back and they were so head up in there.
Yeah. I've had instances where I've turned up to a gig and they've obviously read the posters or watched the videos or something. And I've been, just at the bar or wherever speaking to someone. I was at an event, I can't remember who I was speaking to, but the person was sat down eating crisps. So obviously Princess took a shine to them and decided to stare at them. And they fell out of the chair. And it was like, shit, we hadn't even, I hadn't done anything. So and they just went down. So people can just do it to themselves. Yeah. I mean, do they do it to themselves? Obviously watching my video or seeing the posters, they've convinced themselves something's going to happen. And so it happens.
Okay, here's somebody personal experience in the audience, and they had a bad experience with regression therapy. The therapist tried to convince them that essentially that a serious abuse happened in their family, and that's beyond disturbing because they're talking about before their birth. So how could you know what happened before you were born?
Sorry, the therapist tried to convince them that what?
That their father had, I don't know how that could happen, assaulted the person and the mother and tried to end a pregnancy, which would be their own existence pregnancy. I, I mean, I'm not denying. I'm obviously a therapist is putting something crazy in there, but wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people come to me that have been told that they act the way they do because a therapist told them that they were something in another past life, or and it's like, okay, what to me, I'm not about that life. I'm not, I don't do past life regression. My trainer was very into past life regression. He used to do the research, and test people to see whether they had lived before and things like that. He more did research, but it's never really been my thing. I have regressed people to childhood to relive fun, nice memories and things like that. And during therapy, a lot of therapists do believe in regression to cause. It's not something that I particularly believe in. It's required every now and again, but very, very rarely. I've been I have a 99.9% success rate with anxiety, and I think I've used it twice in the last 22 years. So it's not something that I feel is necessary. And it's you treading on thin ice, accessing past memories. You have to be very well trained to work in that area. And like you say, indirective.
Well, and that's literally the false memories,
Yeah.
Right back to that again. But when we're talking about that, it made me think on past lives questions. And now I have one question for you.
Oh, go on.
How many people that you know of, when they go into the past lives, have said that they were homeless or a serf or a peasant?
I don't do it.
Oh, okay.
I as I say, I've never done past life regression. It's I don't like ghosty things, or it's like I once went to a clairvoyant and it freaked me out a bit. And I when after my parents died, I used to lay in bed, and if I felt a bit spooky, I'd be like, whatever you do, don't appear to me. It's not my bag. I'd be terrified. So it's not something I would do. Definitely not.
Okay. And this question, which I already know the answer to, can it be done over a Zoom call?
Yes, all my whole practice is via Zoom. I don't see any. Yeah, well, before lockdown, I'd say it was about 70% Zoom. And obviously during lockdown, then I see people all over the world, and it's been 100% on Zoom. Sometimes people pay me to fly out to wherever they live, to work with them personally, which is great. That's fine as well. But it's not necessary. I've found results are probably better on Zoom, especially where anxiety is concerned.
Well, because they're in their own environment that they
Exactly.
control, and
Hmm.
they feel a degree of safety on the screen,
Yeah. Yeah.
which could, I would argue, make you even more dangerous.
In what way? I mean, if you're in a room, so for instance, I've worked with quite a few teenagers, and it makes me feel better that I'm then not in the room with them. It's there's not that kind of issue. The parents don't have to worry that I'm not in the room with them, because I'm
Mhm.
not that I'm a threat to anybody or anything. But it's peace of mind that you're not going to get that kind of claim anyway. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, obviously, and then you don't have to leave the house, and you're not paying for a lease necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, for me, it's great. It was recently I went to hypnotize somebody, and it was so bizarre hypnotizing somebody in the same room as you. What I found really weird was hypnotizing somebody without headphones in. And
Oh,
it was
really?
like, I didn't like hearing my own voice hypnotizing people. It was like, oh God, this sounds a bit weird. But yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to finish it on a crazy note.
Oh, go on.
Well, because it is funny. Do you have thoughts toward erotic hypnosis? It's all over YouTube. Seems silly. Might be dangerous. Well, I guess there's a lot of questions on that, like
Yeah.
possibilities. Yes,
Do
no,
I have
others.
any thoughts towards erotic hypnosis? I did used to have a sexual confidence session on my site. And oh my God, did I get trolled by the media? They called me, did they call me? Transsexual. Trans, not trans.
Transsexual. No, it took me a
Transsexual.
second. I got it, but oh
Yeah.
my.
Yeah, it was in all the papers.
But
But
I bet your numbers went up when they did it.
yeah, I got a lot of work out of that. It was quite good. Yeah, but I mean, it again, it's something I've done, not massively. I'm a bit of a prude as well with things like that, so it's probably. I think there's a lot of money to be made in that area. A lot of money, you know. And there's a lot of weird stuff that I've come across on the internet that people do. People like to be hypnotized and made to do
So there's
things.
a fetish out
There's
there.
fetishes that people like to be hypnotized or like to watch people that are hypnotized.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's like the confidence thing. There's all sorts. There's all sorts. It's left to your imagination, I imagine. Um, I mean, there's the old cheesy stuff, old nasty hypnotists on stage making women do, or
Look
men
into my
do,
eyes.
do weird stuff. But yeah, it's a bit nasty. But yeah, it again, not really my area,
Oh,
unless
I
you
didn't
wanted to.
assume so, but it was like, hey, we're gonna end. Look, I'm a slut for clicks. Okay, I
Yeah,
would like views and clicks, and
yeah.
folks, while you're here, I hope
Oh
there's a
God, I'm
like for
gonna
that
get
question.
loads of bloody messages now.
Well, it's at the very end for a reason. No,
Yeah.
like if you really want to know,
Yeah.
stick around. Oh God,
Can
thank
see
you
what you did
so
there.
much. Oh, yeah, I inadvertently did it, and folks want to help it along, so I'm super duper. Christina, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I'll see you again next year, no doubt, unless something
Oh,
crazy happens in between now and then, which it might.
odds are pretty good in the world now that there will be
Yeah.
craziness of some kind, some
Mhm.
desirable, some probably not. But
Yes,
I look
yes.
forward to talking to you every time. Thank you.
Thank you.